I made one feature since then, and I would say that was a very difficult experience for totally different reasons. Not because a girl was peeing, but because it was dealing, but there was shit. And there was some issues about that. And because it was dealing with the subject that people, kept wanting, it was dealing with a person in a nursing home. And I had a lot there, I had to negotiate that. But I was a different person than fighting for that than I was. I had more, I had read a book called Getting to Yes.
What is that, like a self-help?
No, it sounds like a really cornball, like getting yes. But what it really is this Harvard professor who recently died, who did like giant negotiations, like Israel, Palestinian, like all this kind of moderation and negotiations, and he had very simple ways of having you defend yourself without, crying or fighting, and I read it in this, like, you can ask my husband, I read it and absorbed it and then just did it, robotically. I don't even know, it was like a superpower so when I was editing that film, I just used this technique, and sometimes I would check before I would have to talk to executives and just remember what Stanley Fisher, I think his name is Stanley Fisher. He just died. He had an obituary in the New York Times. He was a very famous, Harvard professor, and lawyer, and anyway, it was a really good book for me, and it really helped me. But that was the only thing.
Needed the guy who wrote how to make get peace in the Middle East, and that's
he was the get peace in the Middle East guy. No, but I mean, he brought it down to more domestic levels, like fighting their landlord, or but it was applicable.
I mean, I'm sure there's something to that too. That there's sort of like the feral animal of the I always think, in my experience, like the feral animal that is the person who maybe didn't have the best parenting or something is sort of in a position to then go out into the world and have to kind of defend their work or speak to grown-ups and sort of boundaries and all this stuff that you don't really learn, and so you're kind of like this creature who's like, all right, let's make movies, and lacking some of those tools of these sort of I don't imagine show Gwyneth Paltrow was born with a skill of how to navigate executives, let's say. Do you know what I mean? Just from being raised in a different way. I don't even mean that as an insult, but I'm just saying some people need books. But you know what I mean? It's if you think about what you're describing of this sort of a home and moving from one location to another and stuff, it is a very different thing than suddenly you just want to tell your story, and it's confusing, I think.
No, no woman ever wants to be on, a women in film panel.